Time right now is 6:32, and I see Counselor Fay has joined us. I know Counselor Zdanowitz is on. Let's see. And I see Chief Riddick
Mayor Cantor is on the phone.
on the
Sorry, I
phone.
didn't know if
Okay.
you.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Mayor. Chief Riddick and AC Terra has also joined us. So we will go ahead and get started. I will
Yeah,
welcome.
Mary Fay's here too, Counselor Fay.
Yes, Counselor Fay, I mentioned you in the beginning. Maybe you didn't hear me. Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year. Thank you very much.
Right. All right. So Happy New Year to everybody and welcome to tonight's meeting. This is our virtual public safety meeting in our new year of 2022. Tonight's date is January 5th. And pardon me, I sound a little congested, and that's because I'm one of the people that has been hit. So just bear with me as we proceed through the meeting tonight. I have acknowledged everybody around the virtual table who has joined us this evening. So again, welcome. I know we have a lot of things that we are going to be discussing tonight. But first of all, before I even begin, I just really want to acknowledge all the hard work that you and your teams have been doing. I can't even say since the beginning of the new year, because as Chief Priest just stated, it seemed like it's a carryover from 2021 or really 2020, right? Just continuous right into 2022. And I know since the Christmas break and these past few days in the new year, that you all have really been working your rear ends off. So I just want to send a big, huge applause to you all as leaders, as well as to your rank and file and everybody in between, because I know everyone has been doing their heavy lifting between testing, trying to find a testing kit, between masking, between trying to keep yourself safe and everybody else safe. So just applause to everything that everybody is doing. And please, while we continue to navigate this virus and all these new strains that keep coming out, just please protect yourselves, keep yourself safe, keep your family safe, and certainly please keep yourself healthy. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to acknowledge, because there's a bunch of new faces around this table, right? So I know that there's a bunch of people that has retired. So congratulations to them. And then there's a bunch of new people that has joined us through advancement, and congratulations to you all as well. And then we have some new counselors around the table. So I just want to say welcome, Counselor Cortez. Welcome, Counselor Adrian Billings-Smith. Welcome, Counselor Zdanowitz. And hope I'm not leaving anybody out. And of course, Counselor Fay and Mayor Cantor. Welcome and Happy New Year. And I don't see Deputy Mayor Sweeney. Maybe he will join us a little later. But again, thank you for all the hard work that everyone is doing. And then I just wanted to take a moment to pause for everyone who's still battling the COVID virus. Really, I know that it's rough out there, especially for our hospital staff, our frontline workers. Everyone is just doing yeoman's work. Nobody ever expected when they went into this field that you would be working your butts off this hard as you all have. And I know, just listening to the news and listening to a bunch of other people, how do you deal with so much illness? How do you deal with so much death? Because no one has ever prepared us for all of this. So we just really have to uplift each other, hold each other up in prayer, and just really be that listening ear when everybody needs it. All right, so with all of that said, we will go ahead and start with the agenda. I've called the meeting to order. Let's start with the business items. One is the approval of the minutes.
Excuse me, Counselor and Chairwoman Blanks.
Yes, Jerida.
I have to pause the meeting for a second. We are having issues with our YouTube live.
Okay.
Just give me 1 second.
All right, no problem.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I think we need just a few more minutes, but we are working with WHCI
Okay,
to get us up and live.
all right, thank you.
Chairwoman Blanks, you are free to proceed.
Okay, thank you, Jerida.
You're welcome.
And so we will move to the approval of the minutes for October 6, 2021. As I reviewed the minutes, and I'm hoping everybody else did too, I did pick up just a few typos, which I did communicate to Jerida. So with those particular typos being addressed and corrected, I believe that we can accept the minutes as written unless anybody has any objection. All right, hearing no objection. Once Jerida makes those corrections, then I believe of those minutes can be posted as corrected. All right, so the next agenda item is item B, the petition initiated by the Town Council of the Town of Rocky Hill, asking the General Assembly to convene in special session to address property crime. And I believe this was introduced by Councilor Fay at one of our Town Council meetings. And I believe we all agree that the crime that has been happening, not only in our town, but our surrounding towns, have been a concern for all of us and needs to be addressed with the appropriate resources. So what I will do is I'll turn it over to Matt and your team for discussion and presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Matt Hart, Town Manager. Yes, the council did receive this relatively recently and referred the matter to this committee. I would imagine that Councilor Fay and others wish to speak to it. I would note that we are very close to the start of the regular session of the General Assembly. I believe it convenes on February 8th or February 9th. I do know that a number of organizations, including the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities and the Connecticut Council of Small Towns, are making many of these issues priorities for this coming session of the General Assembly. So I do expect that there will be a lot of conversation about these topics in the coming session. I don't know whether or not, given that the General Assembly will be convening shortly, whether or not a special session is feasible or something that leadership would entertain.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions, comments for Matt or his team? Councilor Cortez?
Yeah, reading the form exactly. Right now, if we were to, say, hey, let's put this up for town council for vote. By the time we convene as town council, it's like they're going to go back in session anyhow. We're not going to get, a call for a special session for this. But how can we take this and make it kind of our own, and not so much call for a special session, but maybe come up with a resolution where we're support, to let people know that we do support our law enforcement officials, that there is action that needs to be taken, and that we're doing what we need to do to address these issues. So maybe create something around, not demanding a special session because, like I said, that ship I believe has sailed. But say no, that there is issues. We are making progress, and we do support our our emergency personnel.
Chairwoman Blanks, thank you, Mr. Cortez, if I may. I submitted this in October. I don't recall the specific date, but it was back in October, and we were winding down as we entered the election season and went forward into the holidays. So it was referred to committee, which is where it is. What I would like to suggest at this point, since it is in committee, first of all, when I did submit it to the council directly, I believed that we had an opportunity to establish West Hartford as a leader and wanting to do something to address the crime situation, which every citizen and business owner will tell you they're concerned about. So that was the intent. And I thought we could be a leader along with Newington, Rocky Hill, and Weathersfield, who had already approved this. Now, granted, from October till now, perhaps the wording needs to be refreshed because some things may change. We may need a special session though, so I don't even know what's going to change. Who knows with COVID? Really, I think everything's day by day. We're being monitored to see what next steps we need to take. And I think the mask, as an example, was one of those, which will go into effect tomorrow, which I support. But anyway, having said all that, that was the intent. I just wanted to give you folks who are new a little bit of the background. I've always supported the Blue and the fire and all first responders, including medical, as well as teachers and others on the front line. So that was the intention of the resolution. My expectation is that I'm hopeful and happy to help is that the committee, in short order, very quickly, will get it into the proper context since it's a bit dated now, and we can get it in front of the council as quickly as possible. So with that, I'll stop with my comments, but I did want to provide a little bit of context for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Fay. And Mr. Hart?
Thank you, Matt Hart, Town Manager. Building on Councilor Cortez's comments and Councilor Fay's comments, what we could do is we could pull together all the related legislative proposals from CCM, from cost. The Police Chiefs Association may have a set of priorities as well. We could present those to the committee for discussion. And then we could certainly submit a letter, from the mayor or from the chair to the members of our delegation, as well as to the appropriate committee chairs, just to emphasize the importance of these issues and in support of the proposals made by CCM, Cost, and others. That's a suggestion for your consideration.
That's a possibility. And as a few of you mentioned, I believe it was you, Councilor Cortez, that the legislative session is going to be beginning right soon. And yes, they may have their hands full, but this will be another item because this is an important issue as well. And I know that the chief can possibly review what we're doing now. And I know he has presented a large number of things for the time that we've been meeting over the past 2 years that can point out some of the issues that the town has been experiencing that are germane to West Hartford in terms of safety, and pinpoint some of those pockets around town and what our leadership and what our rank and file is currently doing as well. So I think we can take all of those points into consideration and put something together. And as you said, Mr. Hart, work with our legislative team as well. Councilor Billy Smith, did you want to add anything, or Councilor Zdanowicz on the line?
No, I agree. Take it back and revamp what's going on. I agree with completely with Town Manager Hart on finding out what the priorities are. I think since we are going right into session here in a few weeks, we need to say the priorities of our town and partner with our fellow towns on our borders to discuss this. So, but I don't have anything further to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Billings Smith. And Counselor Zdanowicz? I know that his video is off and maybe on.
Yeah. So if you can hear me, yeah, no, I really have nothing to add other than, you know, there is a time to lean forward on things. And I know this went to committee, and I've always, you know, either you lean forward or you follow. And this is a time where you lead. And if we could, you know, maybe have a review of this, revamp some of the words. We don't necessarily have to wait for session. You know, if we want to be a leader in our area, this is an area to do that in. So I think it's important enough that I don't think the session really has anything to do with it other than a quick review through this committee and the chief.
Counselor Zdanowicz. But Mary, Counselor Fay, before I go to you, is Madam Mayor, would you like to add anything?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so I do think it's important. Well, you know, when this did come forward, there has been a lot of work being done by regional groups. Again, we do not stand alone. This is a regional issue. So we've done the work. We participated in multiple things. I've been on calls. The town manager's been on webinars, as well as the chief has been participating on regional efforts. So I think a summary is important on efforts that have gone on to update the legislatures, but also to update the council. And also what we are doing and some of the things that we're doing in our own town that might influence some other communities, like the work in Hannock that the chief reviewed with us a couple of meetings ago, that some of our new counselors might not be aware of either. So I think there's a sort of a summary that we can provide, a timeline since this was raised and even before. And then, you know, we're not waiting for a session. That's not what's happened, because the wheels have been turning. But I think the regional efforts need to be coordinated. But maybe a summary, and then submit that to the council and to the legislative body to talk about where we are and where we need to get to.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, over to you, Counselor Fay.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Blanks. Just to put a finer point on this, I think we're all making great points and support this, but I do believe it's important that it results in a resolution that comes before the council. I've heard from many constituents, they expect us to take action on this, and we're not tied to the legislature necessarily, although we do have to work with them, and I know we have been. But we do need to put this forward for a resolution to be voted on by the council. That's what the other towns have done, and I think that's what being a leader means. And I think the people, our residents, expect some sort of action. We do an awful lot of resolutions, just about every meeting, and they're important. And I think this deserves the same level of importance as the other resolutions that we've passed before. So I'll end with that, but thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Counselor Fay. Okay. Excuse me 1 second. Yes, Matt, please.
Matt Hart, Town Manager. Just add a few comments and thank you all for the good discussion and the direction. The chief reminded me of the meeting we had with the members of our delegation in August. The mayor, I believe Councilor Blanks, you may have participated as well, the chief and myself. And we were talking specifically about property crimes and juvenile crime in particular. We did follow that up with a letter, which we will resend to the new council, which was well received by the delegation. So also in preparation of your next meeting, we will pull together the various legislative proposals from all the municipal advocacy groups that are working on these issues. And then, we can prepare our own letter from the town of West Hartford and be prepared to testify when we have the opportunity during this coming session.
Okay, Mr. Hart, that sounds like a good plan to go forward with. All right, anybody else? All right. Okay. So we got up next, communications and staff reports.
We don't have any additional communications, Madam Chair. We can just proceed to the staff reports, fire, police, and then I will close.
All right, so we got Chief Priest who's gonna lead off.
Good evening, everyone. Greg Priest, Fire Chief, Town of West Hartford. Madam Chair, before I begin my report, I was just going to ask if this was Manager Hart's last meeting before I said anything. I didn't want to take away anything. Is that correct, or?
Got one more.
One more. All right, so then I have some more to go, but I didn't want to miss you, Matt, because it's been an outstanding pleasure to work with you, and I'd like to welcome the new counselors coming tonight. I've had several conversations with you. And I just want to tell you how supported we feel in public safety, evidenced by Chairman Blank's remarks tonight about the responders who are out there on the front lines of the pandemic, but they're also continuing to handle the regular calls for service that they have always done. So this is new for us. We're working through it, and there's plenty of changes on the horizon, and really looking forward to this team growing, especially this committee as well. Chief O'Callahan sends his regards tonight. He won't be joining us, but he is joining a great executive team who is Bob Grimaldi is with us tonight. This is his first meeting. Bob, congratulations on your promotion to Assistant Chief, and Fire Marshal. We're looking forward to having you fill some big shoes left by Mike Cincigali, but this is a fantastic group of folks to work with, and we truly feel supported and like to bring matters in front of them moving forward. So, I think the term that I've heard most is pandemic weary, and I think that that's affecting all of us right now. But we are moving through this. Just prior to this latest spike in COVID, I'm pleased to report that we were able to secure a grant to procure bailout equipment for firefighters that was at no cost to the town, improving the safety. It was done by Captain Adam Pacheco. And also our planning and recovery officer, William Schappert, was able to replace all of the AEDs in town facilities with risk management. So we are working on other initiatives, really pushing things forward. But we are now currently being significantly impacted by the COVID-19 as far as staffing. And it is changing almost on a daily, if not minute by minute basis. This morning, we were down, we had about 9% of the workforce affected. By this afternoon, we were up to about 13%, but we have people coming back in just as a result of it. Luckily, we aren't seeing any significant illness, but the quarantine times are affecting our staffing levels and requiring us to divert resources to making sure that our staffing is stabilized. I would say that all of our divisions are equally important, but certainly the Office of Emergency Management is getting a lot of attention right at the moment. We've been working collaboratively with the state, working with a lot of the internal town stakeholders to handle the test kits, which were distributed to us with pretty short notice. And we're using some of the framework that the state gave us to be able to distribute them. The scarcity of the test, obviously kind of a problematic type of issue for us. It's driven the desire for them up, and we're doing our best to be communicative with our policymakers and getting together and understanding the best way to distribute them to our community, and being responsible and responsive to those who need the tests. And we know that there is a significant need. Earlier this evening, we had our CERT team and Deputy Emergency Manager McHugh are out there handing out the kits to the people that reserve them, and they're being assisted by the police department to manage the traffic. But it's a challenge, But we're definitely moving through it. And then I think that kind of concludes my comments for now. And I've submitted a written report and be glad to answer any questions that you may have of me.
Thank you, Chief Priest. Does anyone have any questions for Chief Priest or comments?
Madam Chair, it's Mayor Cantor. I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I just want to thank Chief Priest so much for his leadership and work on making things as smooth as possible in a really difficult situation. So his organizational skills are remarkable, and I'm just so grateful to have his leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I echo those same sentiments, especially with everyone just being so heightened right now. This is the best leadership style we could put forward, and just staying calm and being organized and getting people in and out as quickly as possible. Okay. So that means our next communication report is from our PD. So I'll turn it over to Chief Riddick and his team.
Hi, good evening. Are you hearing me okay? All right, awesome. First, I also want to echo my praise and appreciation for Chief Priest, the town manager, and the mayor, but specifically, Chief Priest, when this pandemic first started, he really helped us and directed us and set us forward with the framework. As I've told him privately, I will acknowledge publicly now, I truly appreciate his efforts and his team, and I learned a lot. And Councilor Blank, you had mentioned his organizational skills are impeccable. I would say the town manager's organizational skills are pretty good too, and the mayor. Mine are not, so I'm learning. All right, I keep a lot in my noggin, and if you can see my desk, and the assistant chiefs will tell you that I'm an idiot savant. So I can figure it out because I know where it's at. But I've learned a lot about organization and direction. So Chief Priest, hats off to you. I appreciate it. You really taught me a lot. Secondly, Mr. Manager, I'm not sure if you want to go through the action plan, or for the benefit of our new counselors, I can take the point on that. Or if we wanted to just, it's submitted, I can take any questions. If anybody has any questions on the action plan, I can run us through it for an order of time. And I can run through a couple other reports. So through you, Madam Chair, however you want to proceed on that, I'll follow.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Does anybody have any questions on the action plan if you had a chance to review them? If not, I will just have Chief Riddick proceed, and then you can ask questions as he goes through the report.
Okay, awesome. So first, COVID has really hit us hard too. In the past several weeks, at our peak, it was approximately 17 of our personnel were out. In addition to that, we have 20 personnel who are either in the academy or in FTO status. So you're looking at a net loss of about 30 individuals that we don't have, from a budgeted number of 130, 131, putting us down to about 100. So we're managing. We haven't seen an increase with 4 shifts and mandatory overtime. But at the end of the day, officers have stepped up. They understand what our obligations are, and we're making our way through. Right. So I'm very appreciative of that, as well as the leadership from Assistant Chief Rickabon and Assistant Chief Tara, helping guide us and focus through there. So that being said, unfortunately, I do not have our year-end stats for our crime stats because COVID has impacted that, but I do have our last stats from November, and I should have our December and year-end stats on by next week. So I'll just throw out really quick November stats. So year-to-date through November, and we'll go through our part 1, our most serious crimes, which includes murder, sexual assault, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, theft from vehicle, theft from buildings, auto theft, and negligent homicide. Overall, we're down through November 24%. So we were trending down, but I do want to highlight The one area was a significant increase, 105% increase was robbery compared through November from last year to this year. But overall, we have seen a decrease. End of the year totals as far as accidents, motor vehicle accidents, 2,310 accidents for the entire year. Of those, 330 were injuries, 1,585 property damage, 372 evading, and we had 23 officer-involved incidents. We don't have enough paper to talk about the FD accidents, but I'll just keep that to the side. Listen, I propped them up, so I have to throw the swipe on the other side. So, our car stops, 2,341. We issued 1,007 tickets, 275 misdemeanor summonses, 639 written warnings, and 664 verbal warnings. Our top 5 locations for motor vehicle accidents are New Britain Avenue at the intersection with South Main Street, Flatbush and New Park, Albany and Mountain, New Britain Avenue and Ridgewood. So, and in the area of 507 Park Avenue. So what we're doing, we have this information to get our officers out there, our traffic details, our officers, just to have more presence and to conduct speed enforcement, again, for an effort to mitigate the impact on property and persons. Use of force for the entire calendar year, we had 125 incidents of use of force. Of those 125 incidents of use of force, they generated 291 use of force reports. So what you'll have is that means multiple people on a scene for a use of force incident, and each officer is required to document their use of force on that incident. Total number of suspects that force was used upon is 141, and the number of suspects who were arrested were 72. Some of the force that was applied was EDPs, an effort to provide them with medical assistance and for them to have them committed in the hospital. Sometimes they fight and they run and the like. So that does equate for that. So just to give you some perspective, year to date, we had 42,376 calls for service. So if we do that with the amount of use of force that we have, there's 0.29% of our calls for service or resulted in a use of force, which is minuscule. So kudos to our officers and their ability to show restraint, our ability to use our training, and really to focus on de-escalation and not meeting force with force. And when we have the opportunity to slow down, take a deep breath, and calm things down before we utilize force. One other thing that got a lot of publicity, you probably saw with the ARPA funds, the state had some pass-through money for the regional task force. We have 2 officers assigned to the Capital Region, Greater Hartford Region task force to deal with the stolen cars and a lot of the crime that was occurring. We also supplement with 2 members of our community support unit from time to time during the week. So their numbers from October 6th through December 30th, they recovered, it's really incredible stuff, 103 stolen motor vehicles, 38 stolen motor vehicle arrests, which are very difficult, by the way, because most people run and you're trying to avoid pursuits. 10 firearms were recovered, 31 arrest warrants served, and 27 classified as other arrests. So this regional task force did one heck of a job during their run. That money ran out last month. We've decided to continue to allow our officers to participate. We are utilizing a modified schedule to mitigate the impact on overtime. And ourselves, New Britain, Bristol, Hartford, Manchester, East Hartford, I believe Farmington too, are still going forward with this because it's the significant amount of work that's being done in an effort to promote public safety for the region. So that being said, one last thing, I'm sorry. If you can recall, and probably some of our new members are unaware of this, we had started a supernumerary program and with the assistance of the town manager and the mayor, HR and the union. So that allows our officers who retired, who can work up to 1,000 hours after retirement to work the construction jobs, because these jobs are going unfilled. So as a result of those efforts, through the calendar year 2021, we generated $404,000 to the town of West Hartford. Of that $404,000, the net revenue to the town is approximately $198,000. So that's tremendous. And that's money, had we not had this program, that would have gone away. We would not have received, we would have nobody to work these jobs. So kudos to the team for all of us working together, putting this together, getting through the legalese and getting through the contractual issues and to come together to fill these jobs, to provide a police presence for safety, and at the same time to provide another revenue stream for the town. Madam Chair, that concludes my remarks, and I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Chief. That was a fantastic report. Let me open it up to questions or comments, especially from our new counselors.
Oh, one more thing, Madam Chair. How could I possibly forget? Through you, if you would allow me to indulge me.
Yes, please.
Assistant Chief Rickabon just texted me. These phones are pretty incredible. I forgot to mention our social worker program that we work with social services. That's up and running. Again, that's a collaboration between social services, the PD, the mayor, and the town manager, Samantha Ennis. I believe we had a meet and greet with her, as you recall, a couple of meetings ago. She has taken a few calls for service. We're still fleshing, things out going forward. She's here in the PD 2 days out the week. The other 3 days, she's at social services. She has a cell phone provided by social services, a PD radio provided by us, and we're still working through some nuances and some issues to work together. But it's a very productive partnership, and we hope to have some tangible metrics to show levels of success and change and impact in our community. So, Assistant Chief Rickabon, thank you for that reminder. And now, Madam Chair, I will stop running my mouth.
Thank you once again, Chief Priest, because I was going to ask how was the social worker working out. So again, that's great news to receive. So now I will turn it over to Counselor Cortez.
Thank you, Madam. And thank you, Chief, for that report. So my question is with the regional task force, you stated that the grant money, the ARPA funds ran out. So, we're funding it now, which I think is tremendous. And we're watching, how much we're putting into it, so you mentioned that, we're working around the overtime and everything. As far as, is that something that is pretty well staffed? Like I'd rather have someone standing at a gate than not standing on a gate, and leaving things to chance. I know things are quieter now in the winter, so that's something we could step up, as it starts getting warmer. Because I know I'm fiscally conservative, so money, spending is a concern of me. But also, there's sometimes where you do have to spend, to get your goal. So I don't want to cut something short. So I guess that's my question. I don't know if you got a question out of that.
Through you, Madam Chair. Again, we meet and they report to Assistant Chief Rickabon through Captain Clark. We have budget meetings, and part of our agreement to go forward with this is the fiscal impact. And as my two assistant chiefs will tell you, I don't play with the budget. I tell them every year we will come in at budget. Now, we might have some line items that might go overrun, but we will come in at budget, which we have done since the time I have been here. That being said, you can't put a price tag on public safety. And given what's going on out there, the efforts that we have allocated, the fact that we have other regional partners who are participating with us, we'll be fine. I'm not taking away from anything. I'm reallocating, and we are triaging where we're bleeding and applying the appropriate pressure to stop the bleed.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate the comment.
Thank you, Chief. Anybody else have any other questions or comments for Chief Riddick? Counselor Billings Smith or Counselor Zdanowitz on the line?
No, I just want to echo everything that everyone said as far as Chief Riddick and Chief Priest and your entire, your departments. You guys have been put in a tough spot the last 2 years. I've had a couple discussions with both of you over the last 2 years, and I commend you for the work that you're doing. I commend you for being, taking the responsibility and being held accountable and doing better for our communities to ensure everyone feels as if they're being served. So I talked to you, Chief Riddick, about that, and Chief Priest, we've had conversations now, making sure that we're representing everyone. And I just am really proud and honored that you guys are doing what you need to do what's best for West Hartford. And I just want to say a big thank you for that.
Thank you, Counselor Billings Smith. Counselor Zdanowitz?
Nothing specific. I'll just echo all the words everyone else said. Happy New Year, and thanks for all the hard work we've done. You've done actually, and I know this morning was quite the obstacle. Wasn't anticipated, and so thanks for all the hard work you've done over the year, and I'm look forward to working with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Zdanowitz. Counselor Fay or Mayor Cantor? Either of you have any questions for Chief Riddick?
This is, oh, sorry,
sorry.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Okay. Sorry about that. It's tough here. Chief Riddick, I was just watching something and recently, and I guess I didn't make this link before, but could you comment on, they said that a lot of the stolen cars that are happening throughout the region are being actually used for drive-by shootings because they can't be identified or traced back. I was just wondering if you had a sense or if you had any numbers around that or could clarify that, but thank you very much for that. I guess my position has always been that while the numbers might not be increasing, which is certainly good, may even be decreasing, which is fantastic. I think some of the escalation factors are still there. So if you could comment on that, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, a couple of factors. One, and I forgot, someone else mentioned it. Historically, when you get into November, December, January, you do have a decrease in crime. That's just, it's colder, people aren't out, the opportunities aren't there. Regarding your specific question of the drive-bys, I mean, many of these vehicles are stolen. First of all, the mere fact they're stolen is a crime. Secondly, they're stolen to commit other crimes, whether it's a drive-by, whether it's a drug transaction, whether it's an assault, a burglary, whatever the case is. So there's always that nexus. But can I say specifically that's the primary? I can't say that, but I do know from my experience, especially with some of the larger cities, that is a problem, and some of the gangbangers do use these vehicles to commit these crimes, and then they take off. So that's definitely true. And lastly, part of this decrease also has to be attributed to the amazing work that the Greater Hartford Regional Task Force is doing, which is why we made the commitment to continue to go forward, even though the grant money has run out. So all those factors have contributed to the downtrend, and we just got to stay consistent, and we stay on it and manage it. In addition to, for the benefit of some of the newer council members, I'll be repetitive for the others who've heard me say this before. Looking to law enforcement to solve these problems is a mistake. It's not going to work. Everybody knows it. It's no secret. We need to allocate the appropriate funding, the programs to these homes where there's issues with parenting, lack of parenting, or people working, and some of these youth who need help, mental health, psychiatric help, a whole bunch of things. And for society and for locations to look to police departments to solve social ills, it's not going to work, folks. And we need to, at the local, state, and federal level, people know this. Let's allocate the money and let's make it happen and let's get it done. And if you want to really see a definite change, that I assure you will change. It won't eradicate, but it will severely mitigate and decrease. And I thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Madam Mayor?
Hi, I just want to thank the chief. He may not be as organized as maybe some of his colleagues are, but he surely is a leader, not only for West Hartford, but for the state. And I'm just, again, so grateful of all this incredibly hard work. Everybody has stepped up in a way that is just really astounding, and I'm extraordinarily grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Chief Riddick, I do have a couple of questions for you based on your report. When you spoke about the motor vehicle accidents, I'm just curious in terms of at the various locations, do you and your team see more accidents, I guess, than others in terms of, are there peaks of when these accidents seem to occur more often than others, or maybe seasonal even?
Yeah, I don't have that data here, but I can tell you based upon my close to 30 years of experience, weather is one, like you had this morning. For example, we held over the entire third shift. I couldn't get into work. As you know, I live out of town, and I could not get in. I had a 4-car accident right around the street leaving from my house, and several other cars were crashed. It was a complete sheet of ice, and I live in a higher elevation. So it took me 3 hours before I can even leave my house. So this morning I held over our entire third shift. They were working on 15 accidents, and we still had another 20 plus accidents they were holding on top of that. So when you have these first weather events, they occur. So it's definitely seasonal. Secondly, when you have the break from the weather from winter to summer, you have an increase of people get excited, they start driving fast, put their windows down for the warm weather, and not paying attention. So we have that issue. And we also have the impact of the last year and a half of COVID. And there's no secret that the lack of some of the enforcement by law enforcement because we're dealing with the pandemic. And so a lot of our numbers have decreased. For example, I think I told you for our car stops is 2,300, whereas historically we're up to around 5,000 and sometimes, 6,000. So the change in the driving behavior, and those of you who drive around, you have to see it because I see on the highway when I come up here every day. People just don't care. The state police are extremely short, and so the enforcement isn't there. But it's a number of factors that come into this. How could I possibly forget? Distracted driving. No one is paying attention while they're driving. So they have these vehicles that do everything for you, make tea, coffee. They're on their phones. They're doing business while they're driving. And meanwhile, they're driving on the highways 75, 80, 90 miles an hour and through the city streets. They're just not paying attention. So those are definitely issues. And that's why distracted driving programs and enforcement is important, and the education component with that. So I was a little long-winded, but I hope I answered your question.
No, you did. And thank you for that information because that's really important, especially, when you have younger drivers on the road, although they shouldn't be on the road like a day like today, but those are just important tidbits to put in their little ear because they're so excited in terms of learning how to drive. But I have another question regarding the firearms that you mentioned. And so I'm just curious that when your men and women do stop vehicles that do have firearms, often are they one or more than one, and are they loaded or not? And probably they are, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, the stat I quoted from was from the regional task force. And again, I don't have the specific data on those firearms, but I will give you my close to 30 years of experience. It's rare to get an unloaded firearm, especially when it's in a vehicle. I'd say over 90% of the times, especially when it's in a vehicle, it is loaded. Whether that means a round is chambered, not necessarily, but normally there's a magazine or there's bullets that are in the weapon to be quickly accessed. It's rare that they are just unloaded. Very, very rare.
Thank you for that. So that just speaks to, and I wanted to mention this to you because I know in a few meetings back when we talked about the training and how important, your men and your women are when they're putting those training sessions together. This definitely speaks volume to the work that you all are doing as a result of the training. And in terms of what you mentioned, in terms of just our men and women being calm, de-escalating a situation so we can see the progress and, especially for our listening audience and our general public to see the good work that we're doing, not only in front of the camera, but also behind the camera, because you never know when those skills are going to have to kick in. So that's why you continue to train and train and train. So again, just all the applause to you and your team, as well as Chief Priest and his team, because this is what it's all about right now. You continue to train so that you're always prepared, because when you stay prepared, you don't have to get prepared. You don't have to get prepared because you're already there and you're already doing that monumental work that is needed to protect everybody in this town. So again, just huge applause to all of you for doing these heavy lifts. And you're not looking for anything back, right? This is your job. This is what you signed up for. But trust me, we're giving you all the accolade and all the applause because you totally deserve it. And as you mentioned, this is COVID, but in addition to COVID, you still have that regular work that you're doing. That's not negated, and no one has forgotten about that. So I just want to express that to all of you, not just the ones that are sitting at this virtual table, but everybody inside those buildings that are doing the heavy lifting. So I just want to say, thank you very much. All right. We will move to the next agenda item. If nobody else has anything else that they want to discuss on this particular item. So now we go to you, Mr. Hart, with your manager's update.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Matt Hart, Town Manager. I want to thank you and the other council members for your positive comments in support of our staff team here. Certainly very well deserved. I did want to acknowledge that Rick Ledwith has joined us this evening. Rick, I think you all know, our Executive Director of Human Resources, and the mayor does plan to nominate him to serve as interim town manager following my departure next month. So Rick has been very diligent about coming to all of our meetings to get up to speed. And Rick's been with us over 20 years now, and I think he'll be an excellent fit in that role. Couple of additional things, building on Chief Priest's report regarding the distribution of test kits and face masks. I think all the council members are pretty well versed in that, but a few things I want to emphasize. First of all, on the test kits, as you know, we received far less than what we would need for our larger population. We've got a population of almost 65,000 residents now. We were initially slated to receive 8,000 test kits, and we received, I believe, 4,725. I do think the methodology we chose to distribute them has worked well, especially in comparison to some other communities. You may recall from my communications to you, we reserved roughly 40% of the test kits that we received for more vulnerable members of our population. That would include clients of social services, people who are homebound, folks living in senior housing. We also reserved some number of test kits for frontline personnel, both town and school district, and that would include our public safety people. But the bulk, 60% of the test kits received, we decided to make available to the general public. And we are specifically targeting, and this has been a hard message to convey, I believe, we've been specifically targeting people who are symptomatic. So we're not looking to give these out just to folks to stockpile and put in their medicine cabinet for future use. They're to be made available to people who need them now. So as you know, we did use an online registration method supplemented by a phone bank that was staffed by our library staff, and we want to thank our library staff for their assistance as well. You know how popular that was, and the high demand. You know, within an hour and a half from making that link active, you know, we had already distributed, or all the test kits, excuse me, had already been reserved. But unlike other communities, many other communities decided to distribute the test kits on a first come, first served basis at one distribution point in town. And I was on a phone call today with many of my colleagues from the greater Hartford region, and they talked about how problematic that proved to be, because you had hundreds or thousands of residents turning out to a central distribution point, and they quickly exhausted their supply, and they had traffic jams, traffic snarls, and hundreds, in some cases, thousands of disappointed residents. So I'm very pleased that we chose to use another approach. And I want to thank Mayor Cantor and Chief Priest, certainly, and Bob McHugh. We certainly can't lose sight of Bob's efforts. He's been a rock star throughout this process. On the mask side, the numbers are much more robust. We received over 230,095 masks, which we will continue to distribute as needed. So when we get additional test kits from the state, you know, we will continue to utilize this method. We are also working with the health district to secure a vendor who can conduct tests on a regular basis at one of our facilities, either town or school, on a regular basis. And we're hoping to get a vendor under contract within the next week or so. We'll certainly keep the council well apprised. So, you know, this was a challenging situation for folks across the state, but I think we've certainly made the best of it, and again, agree with the distribution methodology that we arrived on, and want to thank everyone for their continuing efforts there. And then the last point I wanted to highlight, as all the council members know, earlier today issued a universal indoor mask requirement, or an order. You know, we'd rather use those terms as opposed to a mask mandate, but the practical effect is the same. That will go into effect as of noon tomorrow. All establishments in town, you know, their employees, their patrons, etc., will be required to wear a face covering, like we have done in the past. You know, we've been contemplating this for a significant period of time. I've been in frequent consultation with the mayor, with our health director, with our chiefs, and others, and we did decide to make this move. You know, we do think a mask requirement would be much more effective on a regional or a statewide basis. You know, the governor has been pretty adamant that he's not going to issue a statewide order, at least not at this point in time. So instead, we're trying to approach this as a region, and we are joining the town of Bloomfield as well as the city of Hartford in this effort. Folks are asking me when we might remove the requirement, and we can foresee one of two things happening. First of all, the governor's executive order that authorizes this expires on February 15th. That may or may not be continued in some fashion. We don't know yet. But if the governor's order continues, the metric we would be seeking would be the same metric we sought this past fall, where the infection rate falls to approximately 10 cases per 100,000 of population, you know, maybe a little bit higher than that. By contrast, today, our health district calculated that we are a little over 106 cases per 100,000 residents. That is more than double our highest number over the course of the pandemic. I think we hit 44, 45 this past spring. So we're more than double that. And that just shows how infectious, excuse me, the Omicron variant is. So I appreciate everybody's support from all the council members. I know implementing the mask mandate, here I just said it, the mask requirement was not something we necessarily wanted to do. We did not want to do it, but we think it's a very effective, or can be a very effective measure to help mitigate the spread. And you know, our police will be working actively with the health department to enforce the order. And as I said earlier today, the same approach we took this past fall. It's going to be education first. You know, we're going to seek to educate those who are in violation, provide them with plenty of warnings, but if needed, you know, we can issue a citation. But you know, we will only take that approach if warranted. So that completes my report, Madam Chair. Happy to take any questions you might have, or your colleagues.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Hart. Any questions for Mr. Hart right now at this time, or any comments, especially for my newer counselors? Mr. Zdanowicz on the line. No? Okay. Mr. Hart, I do have a couple of questions for you, and just because we're transitioning back to the mask requirement in my travels, I know that it can be a challenge, you know, for some folks who don't want to wear a mask. And so I'm just wondering, like we did at the top of the pandemic, will there be an extra supply on hand at various places if somebody doesn't have a mask, they're not wearing a mask, they're trying to come into an establishment? What are some of the options around that?
Thank you, Councilor Matt Hart, Town Manager. We are distributing the N95 masks that we received from the state. Businesses can request them either electronically or by making a phone call to us. And I think through our enforcement efforts, if we note a particular business that is lacking a supply, we can direct them accordingly to our resource.
Thank you for that. Those are definitely good options to have. And I know that we have one more meeting with you, so I'll save my comments for that. But I did want to welcome Rick and look forward to working with him. And we've worked together on the board, on the board side. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I too wanted to comment on the way how we distributed the testing kits as well as the mask, because when I was reading it, I thought how clever, neat, and just creative that we came up with that. And I think that was, again, a testament to the teamwork, the collaboration, and the forward thinking to minimize hysteria and to have these long unnecessary lines like we did at the top of the pandemic. So I thought that was just good forward thinking and thinking about those who really need those testing kits right now, especially if people are positive. They don't know that they're positive. They have the symptoms, but they could confuse the symptoms with something else, and then unknowingly are infecting others. So I just think that that was just great teamwork among our public safety team to distribute the testing kits that way, because as we all know, there's no testing kits anywhere, which is awfully just kind of mind-blowing for me, especially since I'm now one of those that are hit. So just thank you for being creative. And again, just, you know, kudos to all of you, because I always say this, we have to remember that you all are human and you have families as well. And so just self-care and, you know, make sure that you guys just pay attention to your own health needs as well. Because, you know, I know you all are the top police officers and the top firefighters, but again, you know, we can go down at any time as well. And just know that you all are in my thoughts and prayers every day that you're out there on that front line. All right, with that said, We're winding down to the bottom of the agenda, so we have any future agenda items that anybody would want to place on our next meeting agenda before we go to adjournment. Right? Nothing? Okay, and then before I adjourn, I do want to acknowledge our Madam Mayor, because Mayor Sherry Cantor, you are such a force to be reckoned with. And I always say you're the hardest working woman in CT right now. And you know, you might be petite, but you are the hugest leader, and if that's even a word, right, that I know of, because you are everywhere and you provide the support that's needed to our town, our professional staff. And it is an absolute honor and privilege to work with you as a council member and to have you as a leader. And I just wanted you to know that, and I wanted to make this public statement. So thank you for everything that you do for West Hartford, because you bring your A game to this team each and every day. And so with that said, I will ask for an adjournment. It is 7:39. If there's nothing else, we can call the meeting adjourned, and just everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and watch each other's back out there.
Thank you all.